Hey, it's Lauren. So for today's video, I'm going to be recreating my makeup look from yesterday. I just really felt like it was such a flattering look, a simple look, but one that most people could recreate and wear on a daily basis. So most of these products are not new to me. Most of these are either products I have had and used for a long time, or they are repurchases. So that should tell you how I feel about them. And additionally, I will be playing with the Eldridge Cinnabar palette and creating a slightly different look than the video review that I did for that. I'm going to start with the Exa High Fidelity foundation. This stuff and I have a fun history. So I recently bought a bottle of this at Ulta because I saw it there. You can see how much I'm using. I'm not using a ton. I recently saw this at Ulta and I bought another bottle because I had tried it a long time ago when it first came out and I did a review on it. And after I got it a second time, I can't tell you what it was that made me want to try it again, but I did. After trying it another time, I was like, wait a minute, why was I so hard on this foundation? And I think really what it boils down to is the fact that I had started a new retinol and my skin was like dry and flaking and showing a lot of texture. And I really just don't think I was fair to this foundation at all because it's really beautiful. By the way, the shade of this is Gretta 460. Upon using it now, it gives me some really great coverage. It really helps to cut down on my redness. It has this really nice sort of like satin finish. Like now that my skin's not flaky, I'm like, this foundation is fantastic. I don't know if I just had like an unrealistic expectation before or what it was, but I'm really glad that I decided to give this another chance. I actually think it's a really beautiful foundation. It looks like my skin. It looks more evened out, and the way that this lays on the skin is just very natural. I think it's a beautiful foundation. If you're looking for like a medium, kind of a medium buildable coverage, I think this is an excellent pick. I do think you have to shake it to death to really get it well emulsified, I guess. When I first bought my new bottle, I kind of had a little bit of a panic and I was like, oh my God, this is not going to work out for me because for some reason, like when I first got this, it's like sort of separated. Like it kind of reminded me of like the Chanel Water Fresh tint where you've got like the thin serumy liquid and then like the pigment in it. And I was like, I don't remember the first bottle being like that. This is kind of weird. And then after like shaking it a long time, it was totally fine. And it's been great ever since. But do make sure that you shake well if you are going to get this. So as you can see, I used maybe a half a pump on my face. I've really found lately that less is more. And I think part of that comes down to the fact that if you're watching makeup on social media, a lot of people are really heavy-handed with product. And I have just found, especially now that I am past 30, less is more. So I'm going to take this MAC Pro Longwear Concealer. And again, I'm not going to use a ton of this. I'm using a very, very small amount. This stuff is, well, that's more than I need. This stuff is extremely concentrated. This is actually the concealer that I wore for my wedding day nearly 10 years ago. And I still think it's an excellent choice for concealing. It's got this very thin texture. But it's very high pigment and it makes it really easy to use the teensiest amount and still get great coverage. I do have a few little breakouts today. Not too bad anywhere else, so I'll do a little bit around my nose. I'm using the Jones Road brush and the shade of the MAC that I'm wearing is NC25. I've always found it so interesting that the MAC shades are so confusing. It's kind of like the House Labs, which I talked about in my review of that. But like the NC stands for like neutral cool or natural cool. And all of my foundations are warm toned. They're opposites of what you would think. Look how little of that I used, and it really just helps to lift out that shadow. Such a tiny amount of product. You really need to use less than you think. So often with TikTok makeup or even on Instagram, a lot of that makeup is really done for the camera. It's not done for real life wear, and can look very strange in person. And I say that because I've done it. I've done the whole heavy makeup trend, and it just does not translate the same in real life. Taking just a teeny tiny bit more. Look how much of that is still left over. That's my one complaint with this matte concealer. I don't like that it's in a pump. It's much harder to control how much you're actually getting out. And I wish that was not the case. But it's been the same packaging for the last 10 years. They have not changed that. I think from a sanitary standpoint, it's pretty nice, but also it just tends to waste a lot of product. I mean, you can see how little you need of this to get really good coverage, and you can see how much of it I've used. This thing will last forever. This is not the one from 10 years ago, but it will last a very, very long time. Just going to take whatever is left on my brush and drag that down just a little bit. Balance out the coverage everywhere. All right, we've got a nice fresh base. Now I'm going to take the shade Knickers from Beckham Beauty. This is the Cheeky Posh. This is, I think, the most beautiful peachy pink sort of melon shade. And truthfully, since I've, been a redhead, I've kind of gone back and forth on wearing peachy tones because sometimes I feel like they can lean too orange and be really, just too much orangey tones with my hair. But this shade in particular is really a nice balance of peach and pink. And it brings a certain freshness to my complexion, which I really like. For my wedding day, I wore the shade Peaches from MAC, which is a matte blush. This reminds me of that a little bit. It's maybe a bit lighter and a bit more pink. I really, really love this shade. I'm glad that I took a chance on it. Initially, when I bought this for my review, gosh, a year ago now, I got the shade Roller Skate. And Roller Skate's a really beautiful shade, but it's also very bright, vibrant, punchy, kind of corally pink. I just really love this shade. It's so pretty. It brings some color to your face without being a distracting blush. I really, really like this. Now I'm going to set my face with some Coty Airspun. This powder is so inexpensive, but I think this is one of the best setting powders I have ever owned. And I'll say that I have owned some very expensive setting powders, and I still think this is the best. It brings down the shine, it helps to set your makeup, but it also doesn't get cakey or crease a whole bunch. There's a reason why this stuff has been around forever. You'll notice a lot of times when I set my face, I don't go over my blush too much. And the reason for that is that I don't want to flatten out that color. I kind of go around the edges, but a lot of my cream blushes have a little bit of a sheen to them, and I don't want to dampen that down at all. I'm just gonna take whatever is left on here and just tap it over my eyelids. It's kind of a nice way to cut down some of the oiliness, set your eyelids a bit. Next, I'm going to take some of the Jones Road bronzer. I have raved about this stuff over and over. It's a beautiful shade, and it really just warms up my face. You can tell my face tends to be a bit lighter than my body. Not really sure why that happens, but that's kind of been the case for a long time. So I'm going to bronze around my forehead and then across my nose. I always kind of do this, and I feel like it creates a very natural looking bronze. Take a little bit on the center of my face because if I were out in the sun, that's where the sun is going to hit me. And then I like to drag down a bit. There we go. That's it. Very simple. Now, I'm not going to do any type of a highlighter because the blush is glowy enough on its own. Now I'm going to take the Lisa Eldridge Cinnabar palette, and I love how this look came out yesterday. For my review video, I did a much more bold look. I used literally 6 shadows, but for this particular look, it's much softer. It's only 3 shadows and very strategically placed. So I'm going to take raw sienna, which is that sort of caramel color, on sort of a loose brush, and take that right in my crease for some definition. I love this shade. I could see this being one of my first replacement pans that I'm going to have to get. I like to keep my eyes open while I do this, just because I do have sort of deep set eyes. You can see how far my brow bone comes out. I don't have hoods necessarily, but definitely very deep set eyes. And so I find that the application oftentimes is very similar to that of hooded eyes, where you want to kind of keep your eye open so you can see where you're needing some color compared to where my crease is, which is much further back in the socket. You don't have to have any of these products. You could definitely recreate this look with whatever you have. I do want to throw that out there. I'm telling you what I'm using though, so if you're interested in it, you could always go and get it yourself. But definitely, if you have these tones, use what you have. Love that. Okay, super simple. Next, I'm going to take the shade Ritual, which is like the gold shimmery particle, and I am just going to dip my finger into it. Well coated. Look how beautiful and reflective that is. And then I'm going to just sort of press and lightly drag across my lid to deposit that shimmer. So beautiful, so simple. I'm so glad that I bought this palette. I have already really enjoyed it. It's fun to use. There's not a bunch of fallout. It's really a wonderful palette. And then I'm going to press a little bit right through my tear duct, just because I want that little fairy kiss of twinkle on the inner corner of my eyes. Okay, next I'm going to take my Chikuhodo little pointed dome brush, and I'm going to use the shade Deep Ochre, which is sort of that velvety saddle brown shade. And I'm going to put that on the outer edge here at sort of like a 45-degree angle up towards my eyebrow. And then I'm going to come back in over top, and whatever is left on the brush I will use to softly blend. Very simple. And I'll do the same thing on the other eye, sort of using a stamping motion. This just creates a nice subtle lift on the outer corner of my eye. That's it for eyeshadow. Whatever's left on here, I'll do a teeny tiny swipe underneath my eyes just for that little definition. Nothing heavy though. And then I'll take my Jones Road brown eyeliner. Love this stuff, so good. And I'm going to line very, very close to my lashes and follow that little lift that we created on the outer edge. And I sort of stop my liner kind of midway on my eye, just because, again, being somewhat deep set, I don't want to close off my eye by going all the way across, because when I relax my face, a lot of times all you see is that liner. So I want to leave some space on the little bit of lid that you actually see when my eyes are open. You sort of drag and lift with your finger. Always have to check for balance. Okay, liner is done. Again, like I said, this is a very, very simple look, but it was so pretty and fresh that I wanted to share what I did because I loved how this wore all day. Now I'm going to define my brows using the Jones Road Brow Pencil. This is the shade Light Brunette. And just lightly, quickly feather through here to fill in my gaps. Tilting my head back to see where those holes are. And in a minute, I will grab a spoolie and lift and shape this now that the product is in. You'll notice I'm not being too precious with this. Sort of slap it in there. Okay, now to find my spoolie. I think especially after you apply this product, you want to go back and brush through it because it does have some fibers and also a little bit of hold, kind of like a pomade. And so I find that when you lift your brows into place after applying this, they're going to look their best. You can see it just looks a lot softer and this looks a little more sharp. You can kind of create whatever brow you want with this because of that, but I just want a little bit of a softer brow. They're cousins, not sisters, not twins. Close enough. Okay, moving on. I also recently picked up a new tube of the Victoria Beckham Future Lash. I did a video on this ages and ages ago, but this is such a beautiful mascara. And I remembered last night as I was washing it off exactly why I loved it. The first thing you need to see, it's a very teeny tiny brush. There's a subtle curve to this brush, but this is a tubing formula, and that's part of why I love it so much. But not just because it's a tubing formula. It washes off the easiest out of all my tubing mascaras that I own. So let me go ahead and put this on for you. Oh, I made a bump with my brow product. Okay. The nice thing about this mascara is because of that subtle curve in the wand, it does help to lift your lashes. But what I like so much about this mascara, it's not the most dramatic mascara I own, but it gives you really beautiful, sort of natural looking lashes, and it wears all day without smudging. What I like so much too about this mascara is because that wand is so small, you can really hit those bottom lashes. You'll notice too, I'll have the wand curved and matching the shape of my lashes, and then sometimes I'll flip it. So I have that bowed out part. And sometimes that can be a little easier to get tight corners than having it curved in like that. You're more likely to make a bump versus having it sort of stretched away from your skin. The other thing I think that is pretty special about this mascara, given that it's a tubing mascara, is that I actually feel like you can build this mascara. A lot of times with tubing mascaras, you can't really go back in and apply more after you've let that first coat sit for a minute. But with this one, I feel like the formula is soft and flexible enough that you can. So just as an example, I'll just take whatever is left on my brush and work this through a bit so you can see what I mean. Every now and then I find when I sleep, sometimes my lashes will stick together kind of weird, and it makes mascara a bit more challenging. If you want a really beautiful, naturally defined lash, I think this is a fantastic mascara for that. It'll wear beautifully all day, and the removal is, like I said, the easiest out of all my tubing mascaras. Eye look is done. Very, very soft, very, very simple. So to finish this look out, I'm going to apply some lips, which are also both from Victoria Beckham Beauty. I'll be using the lip definer in the shade 2 and the Posh gloss in the shade Bungalow. What I like so much about this lip definer is that it's sort of a nude spiced shade. I do have a little bit of a lip balm on. I sort of wipe off the excess. And when I define my lips, I go a little heavier underneath. Pinch in on those corners. Don't really follow out the line all the way out because it can make your mouth look kind of droopy. And then for that top lip, same thing. Where as I'm coming up through here, I'm slightly overlining through my bow. Okay, you can see how that technique makes your lips look more pouty. Now I'll go in with the shade Bungalow. I also have reviewed her gloss before, but that was back when they initially launched and it was just the clear gloss. And I remember saying and thinking, I hope that they launch some colored variations of this formula because I just personally, I'm not a huge clear gloss person. I love having a little bit of tint to my gloss. And so the shade Bungalow, I just thought it would pair so beautifully with Knickers. And so it really does. It's a little more pink. I feel like the blush is a little more peachy, but there's enough peach in Bungalow that they tie together so beautifully. I'm a 90s baby. I'm always going to be a gloss girl. And that's it. That is the face that I did yesterday. I loved how this makeup wore all day. It looked so beautiful even by the time I went to go wash it off. It's just very simple. You can see that Lisa Eldridge palette. There really is some great versatility. I know that it's like a warm neutrals, right? Like you've definitely got like these very bronzy, coppery shades, but there also are enough soft neutrals that it's not going to be a solid gilded bronze eye every time. You definitely have some wiggle room to make it very, very soft. The shade Ritual, that sort of gold shimmer pearl, is sheer. So you can see your skin underneath, and that really provides a lot of flexibility with this palette. I just love this makeup look. It was so simple and I felt so pretty all day. So I hope that you've enjoyed this little tutorial sort of video, And if you want to see more from me, make sure you subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a little thumbs up. That helps other people to find my channel and I can continue bringing you this kind of content. I'll see you next time. Bye.